Welcome to the Yappy Hour, powered by Yappily, the podcast for dog lovers who want to better understand and care for their furry companions. I'm your host, Nathan Dunleavy, and today we're talking about a fascinating and fast-growing topic in pet care: probiotics. My guest is Joe Flanagan from Ingenious Probiotics, a company that's revolutionising pet care with probiotic-based grooming and cleaning products. We'll explore how probiotics work, why they're a game changer for dogs with allergies or skin issues, and how switching to probiotic care can benefit your dog's well-being. Whether you're curious about microbiome health or looking for natural alternatives to pet care, this episode is packed with useful insights. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's get started. Welcome back to the Yappy Hour. I'm your host, Nathan Dunleavy, and I'm so excited to bring you our next episode of the Yappy Hour, powered by Yappily. I'm really excited because we've got someone on today that's going to be talking about probiotics, which is a growing topic in the pet care. We've got Joe from Ingenious Probiotics. Hi, Joe.
Hey,
Um,
Nathan.
Hello, welcome to the Yappy Hour. So, their focus is on natural probiotic based pet care products that help maintain a healthy microbiome, eco friendly, plant based approach, and how it benefits both pets and the environment. So, this is something that we've not spoken about before on the Yappy Hour. So, I'm really excited to sort of dig in a little bit deeper and find out lots of information about it all. And I've heard Joe's name branded around on a few podcasts myself that I've been listening to recently. So it's great to have him with us. Joe, welcome to the Yappy Hour. It's great to have you here. How are you? How are you today?
Yeah, great, Nathan, and thanks for having me on today. Today's been a really good day, actually, and my mum's in hospital, but she's doing really well, likely to come out tomorrow,
Oh,
and we're all up. So yeah, you got me on a
oh,
particularly
brilliant.
good day. So you go from talking about, you know, questions about dogs' ears and skins to, quick, who's going to see mum? Yay, we're going. We're having a lot of fun. It's good.
You have a bit of a rota going on. You're
Yes.
back home in Ireland at the moment, aren't you? So
Yeah, yeah.
you're with us all the way from Ireland. That's great.
Yeah. It's great to be. It's like when you go home and you kind of with your homies, as they say, and just surrounded by all your familiar things from your childhood. Yeah, it's just great. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, good soul food.
Brilliant. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out then. If you're back home and your mum's been poor, I do really appreciate you having some
No,
time with us
delighted.
this
This is
evening.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, for those who might not be familiar with Ingenious Probiotics, can you share a little bit about how it started, what inspired you to focus on probiotic pet care, please?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody's story, it can have a kind of higgledy piggledy beginning, and then you realize you're on a particular path, kind of thing. But the thing that got my interest about 20 years ago, we got involved with air quality. We come from a background of temperature control and ventilation, which led into CO2 control and being aware of the air we breathe in, and that moved into being then more involved in what we call health and wellness in the built environment. Now, the built
Mm,
environment is just being inside something that somebody has built. It's that
yeah.
simple. It could be your car, it could be your pub, it could be your home, whatever. It's inside a building. So there's various people who are responsible for what's going on in there. You know, the plumber is doing your heating, and the ventilation guy is doing this, and the electrician make sure you got light and things like natural light, ventilation, all these kind of things became quite interesting to us because at that stage I was realizing, and again it's 20 years ago, realizing just the impact that this was having in health
Mm,
overall. My area at the time was to do with air. So we
right,
became very aware of just how much air people breathe, and the
right.
kilograms of air that people would breathe way exceeds the kilograms that they would eat in any
Right.
given day. So we all know the huge importance of what you eat, and you are what you eat and whatever. But if you're
Mm,
eating I don't know. You know, I never measure what I eat, but over here in Ireland, it just seems to be cake. But I know, but you know, you're breathing 10, 11, 12 kilograms of air
Mm,
every day. So you
that's
can,
mad.
yeah. So you
Never
think, well,
never thought of it like that.
so everything you breathe in, it's going into those nice little lungy poos that we try to take care of, right? You know, this they need that then take what's in the air, oxygen, and put it into our bloodstream, and you know, there's a whole science about what passes through the barriers inside you and what doesn't. Anyway, we end up breathing in a hell of a lot of not so very nice stuff.
Mm,
And we were involved in air purification using catalytic converters in ventilation systems, and really, really interesting, quite close to my heart because I felt we were doing something.
mm,
So doing something to help by taking out chemicals, taking out kind of particulates and some biohazards and so on. And then we started looking at what was putting those chemicals into the air we were breathing in the first place. And this came
mm,
about from some of the rules and regulations around ventilation, and you had to bring in so much outside air into an office.
mm.
And then you think, well, hang on, the outside air isn't that great. And now we've got to, it's my job to pump it in to your office in the middle of whatever town you live in. And it doesn't have to be London. It can be, you know, think of it, I don't know, Leamington Spa. You just pick a town, you know, pick a
Yeah.
small town. It doesn't have to be some massive, you know, Glasgow or something, right? So that led us into looking at where these chemicals and that we were breathing in, where they're coming from, and one of the things that made our monitor spike was cleaning products. So,
Yes.
and at this time we were looking to reduce people's use of air fresheners
Okay.
full of chemicals, formaldehydes, all kinds of stuff,
Yes.
you know, where people would use a scent, an artificial scent to mask something else. And we wanted people to stop doing that because we knew it was adding to the chemical load, the chemical exposure. So we found probiotics, and initially our entry into this was using the probiotics to remove the organic matter that the bad
Mm,
bacteria were feeding on. So the bad bacteria were giving off smells. The organic waste matter was giving off smells. And we could use probiotics to get rid of both of those. So
mm.
instead of putting a chemical in to make it give you that nice, I don't know, pint fresh or whatever you want to call it, smell, right?
Awful.
Awful, you know what we're talking about. We could actually stop the smell happening in the first place
Interesting.
in a
Wow.
very natural way with no
Yes.
chemicals and so on. And at the same time, bearing in mind, I'm looking at the air quality, what people breathe in. So stopping those odors, that's good. That makes people feel better. Stopping the use of the chemicals people are using to mask those, hey, that was the goal. But also the way the probiotics work is that the organic matter that they're eating, for some people that represents bioallergens, you know, allergen triggers. So people with hay fever and so on, we're removing some of the bioallergens, the organic waste matter. So it was
Mm,
just a win, win, win. And
yeah.
then we found out that the same technology was available for cleaning products. So now we could stop the harsh chemicals in the cleaning products going into the environment. And that led us down one road. And then we found I'm still answering question number one, by the way.
It's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Oh man, talk about, you know, the next shiny thing, and you go, okay, so now we can put these probiotics on an animal. What? Get out
Mm,
of town. What are you talking about?
yeah.
Let's look at this now. Whoa, stop the lights. And we're finding
Shut
now
the
that
front door.
shut your front door. So stop the lights, bunny, as we used to say back over here. So those Irish people of a certain age who just got that reference. But so we could do the same process, which was remove the organic matter, outcompete the bad bacteria that were causing the problem, and stick a pin
Mm,
on that the problem. Let's talk about what the problem was. In early days, we were talking about malodor, bad smell creation. So that was the problem we were fixing. So
mm,
outcompeting the bad bacteria that caused the problem in the first place, replacing them with a bacteria that doesn't cause the problem.
yeah.
And this is what we ended up putting probiotics then. That's how we ended up putting it onto dog's skin for atopic dermatitis, and into dog's ears and into dog's teeth, cat's teeth in particular, and horses' cuts and horses' hooves and pastern care and so on. So
Wow.
I think that answers the first question, but that's how we ended up, Nathan, in
Yeah.
doing what we're doing, and we've taken that
Brilliant.
taken the ball to use a rugby pun. We pick the ball up and carry it on to
Yeah.
the next line. But chemical reduction, pharmaceutical use reduction, and I say chemical reduction, I mean exposure to harsh chemicals reduction, antimicrobial resistance, and improving of health whilst we're reducing all those things.
Mm.
That's what gets us out of bed in the morning.
Very interesting. Brilliant. Thank you. So probiotics are often associated with gut health, but your products focus on external care too. Can you just explain the science behind how probiotics work in pet care, please?
Yes, the word probiotic is coined by the World Health Organization, and it just means a microorganism that has a benefit to the host, right? And that could
Yeah.
be anything.
Yeah.
So people have become aware of the importance of the gut microbiome. They're becoming aware
Mm.
of the brain microbiome and so on. But the gut microbiome and the necessity of bacteria and the role they play and how they feed us, how they help break food down and feed us, how to create certain vitamins, even the role of certain bacteria in combating or competing against other bacteria within the digestive system, and how some bacteria are necessary maybe in one part of the digestive system, but can cause a problem if they get into some other part. Okay, and
Mm.
how some bacteria, for example, the one I love in particular has had the gut lining is very thin, and
Yeah.
it's got a mucous membrane there that's protecting it, and it will recognize some friendly bacteria that it knows that their very presence helps keep away some of the bad bacteria, that it wants to be there because they're doing another job, but doesn't want them too close to the lining where it can cause a problem. And all of this is going on in a finely balanced environment. Now, if you cut to the outside, it's similar but different in
Mm.
that the the good bacteria, unlike the gut, they're not necessarily performing functions. They're not producing vitamins and so on quite so much. There's a bit more research going on to that. But what they are
Mm.
doing is outcompeting the bad bacteria. And this is the theme that runs through everything.
Mm.
Using good the good bacteria to outcompete the bad bacteria. Just that
Yeah.
simple. And if I can explain this, I think when we talk about ears are a great way of just explaining it. But one of my vet friends was at a talk at the vet show last year, and he was saying how the uh, the laboratory that were given the talk was saying, "Hey, look, here's the list of here's the list of the bad, here's the list of the bacteria. Leave out the word bad. Here's the list of the bacteria that we're
Mm.
finding in the swabs of infected ears that you send to us. You vets send to us the lab.
Mm. Yeah.
Here's a list of bacteria we find in uninfected ears, healthy ears that you, the vet, send the swabs to us, the laboratory." And the list was nearly identical.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, and of course this was great for us because the vet was saying this, and I'm saying, yeah, of course, this is what we talk about all the time. It's the balance.
Mm.
Now you can have a little bit of staphylococcus, and most of us do on our skin, but we don't have a staph infection. What's that all about? Because we've grown up being thought that if you've got bacteria, you've got to kill bacteria. That person got
Mm.
a bacterial infection. He's got a bacteria. Oh my God, how did he get bacteria? Well, every single life form on the planet has its origins in bacteria. That's where life
Yeah.
started, right? So,
Yeah.
and you're going back 3.5 billion years. So, you and me, we're grown male adults. We've got maybe, depending on what reports you read, let's say 30 trillion microorganisms on us and in us, and kind of like a little halo around us. Okay.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and so for germaphobes, switch off now. But this is the light. This is the thing. And there's your gut is a good example where you need those bacteria. How long would you last without any bacteria?
Mm.
And it's a
Mm.
really good question. And there's animals and insects and all kinds of life forms in the world that can't exist. Certain insects can't get past the larvae stage if they don't get fed the feces from the mother.
Right.
because of the microbiome that they need then
Mm.
to, it has to be passed on and passed on, and so on. So on the skin, back to the original question, on the skin, here we are covered in this microbiome. But the same is true for everything you can see, your windowsills, the microphone you're using, the laptop, you name it. If your eyes can land upon it, it is covered in a microbiome. So yeah, and that's just it. But
Yeah.
what's important is the balance.
Mm.
Little bit of salmonella, nobody's gonna know. Your immune system's gonna take care of that. Thank you very much. A lot of
Good.
salmonella, now you're sick, right?
Yeah.
So it's a balance. So what we
Yeah.
do is,
Life's about balance.
well, you're absolutely right. For life balance, the branding is a French word, which doesn't mean anything in English, but in French it stands for life balance. Pro vilain, for life balance.
Mm. Very
So
nice.
yeah, and it's a nice environment. It's a nice way to approach it as well. Instead of trying to kill off bacteria, you're using a pro approach. So
Mm.
here we go. We're taught to get rid of bacteria. We're taught that bacteria kills, and then we find out, oh, hang on, we're very, very dependent on bacteria, and certain bacteria doing certain jobs, and so on. And on the skin, we're covered with the stuff. So what happens when we kill it off? What happens when we clean the floor of the toilet with some heavily antibacterial thing? You know.
Yes.
So so we say to people, ask yourself the question: what happens next? You're going to use an
Mm.
antibacterial shampoo. You're going to put something antibacterial in your dog's ear. Maybe the
Yeah.
vet has told you to do it. Maybe you're following advice. We're not saying here and now, we don't know your dog, don't know the situation. We're not saying don't do that. But but people will use an antibacterial, and manufacturers will proudly tell you, hey, look, here's this toothpaste. It's antibacterial. Ta-da! Great. Let me swallow a tube of that a year into my gut, which is heavily dependent upon bacteria. Okay. What about this cleaning product I'm going to spray around? Yeah, let me breathe some of that into my body, which is heavily dependent upon bacteria. And let's just see what happens. So
Right.
you let's take the cat or the dog, and you're exposing it to antibacterial. You're wiping out the microbiome. The question is, what
Mm.
happens next? So Mother Nature, we learned in school, Mother Nature abhors a vacuum. So if there's nothing there, she's going to put stuff there. That's just it, right? So don't like vacuums, ain't having it.
No.
So good old Mother Nature, and with this, with outcompeting good bacteria, outcompeting bad bacteria. Again, she's got 3.5 billion years experience with this, so she knows what she's doing, right?
She knows her stuff.
She knows. So she said, well, let's just lean our shoulder into her wheel rather than going completely against her, which is the easier sell, right?
Mm.
Let's be honest. Do you pick things up from the shelf in the supermarket because it says the word antibacterial? I'm going to use this antibacterial spray, let's say, to clean my kitchen worktop.
And then it says
What
it
happens?
kills 99.9% or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it
On the
says 99
label.
because they're legally not allowed to say 100%, right? Because of,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
It used to say kills all known germs dead. And
Right.
this leads us into germs. People think bacteria are germs. Okay. Well, how about we say a pathogenic bacteria is a germ? The bad bacteria that cause a problem. Yeah, they're germs. Okay, so what percentage of the bacteria then are germs in that way of looking at it?
Yeah.
What percentage would you categorize as germs? And the figure is significantly below 1%.
Mm.
Significantly. So okay, so 0.01% of bacteria is bad. Well, let's kill all the others and
Mm.
proudly use it as a marketing slogan. Let's kill all the rest. And again, the question is, what happens next?
Mm.
So, well, Mother Nature's going to cover that surface in bacteria. So you clean your kitchen table or your kitchen floor or your dog's skin with something antibacterial. How long is it going to stay free from bacteria? And that's going to vary depending on a number of things, but we're counting in minutes. We're not
Mm.
counting in hours. So when you're talking to cleaning crews and you say, look, you've cleaned, let's say, the kitchen in this house that you've been cleaning with antibacterial cleaning products. By the time you're lifting your boot lid to put your stuff back in your van, it's covered in bacteria again. Except this time you
Yeah.
don't know what bacteria it's covered in. So that's the question. We say, you're going to wipe out the microbiome. What is going to happen next? And for most people to say, look, we never thought of that. What does happen next? At which
Mm.
point I jump in and tell them, obviously. So because we love talking about it. So there's a couple, and I know we got some things to go through, Nathan, and I'm wandering, but
That's
this is
okay.
all connected. So you're going to wipe out that microbiome. What is going to replace it? Might be something fairly benign. Great,
Mm.
that's super. So it's replaced with something benign. Do you think it's going to be any different than the microbiome you had before? Well, look, if it's a kitchen table, you got to clear away those coffee stains and bits of food. You got to clean them away. Of course, you got to remove physical dirt. But how about we do it instead of killing all the bacteria? How about we do it, but we leave good bacteria there to act
Mm.
as a shield.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so now when Mr. Salmonella or Mrs. E. coli parachutes into your kitchen table, they don't have a free run.
Da-da-da.
They didn't,
No.
So now you've got this armed guard of all these army of probiotics there offering a resistance, and it's a little bit like
I'm picturing it now.
yeah, yeah. So it's a lovely, and so I use a sports analogy, and I have to be really careful because I start using a sports analogy and I go, where am I? Shall I talk about Arsenal and Spurs? Better not. What about them Dundalk and Drogheda? No. What about Ireland and England in the rugby? No. Let's see if we can find it. Let's say there's Team A and Team B, and let's
Yeah,
say
that's
yeah, it's safer, right? Let's say
yeah,
Team A have got 15 of the best rugby players in the world.
yeah.
Team B have 1,000 rugby players. Right. Who's going to win? Well, the 15
Mm.
other guys are just going to give up. They can't move. They haven't got the room. They've got no sustenance. They can't do any of their job, and they just kind of fade away. So that's how the probiotics work from our point of view, that they just offer a competition so that the bad bacteria don't have the room and the food that they need to thrive. So
Mm.
if you imagine that level, and I'm holding we're not on video, are we, Nathan? But I'm holding my hands up level, and one hand goes way up and one hand goes way down. So we're going to affect that balance by putting lots of good bacteria on. And remember what I said about the ear results? You may have
Yeah.
the same list of bacteria in the good ear and the bad ear, but in the bad ear, you've got a lot of, let's call it streptococcus or something, right? There's the number of pathogens. So we put lots of the good ones in and they just outcompete the bad ones. But at
Yeah.
the same time, if you take the dog skin analogy or the kitchen table analogy, the probiotics, how are they out competing? Well, we know that even dead probiotics will do this. They'll outcompete. They'll physically offer difficulties for the pathogens to operate. But what
Mm.
about the live ones? Well, the live ones will open up out of their shell because they're in spore form, and that's really important. So inside the bottle, they're hibernated, for want of a better
Okay.
word. You spray
Yeah.
them out onto your dog's skin or the mirror in your bathroom or whatever. Now they've got organic matter, which is food, so they wake up. They've got oxygen and so on,
Mm.
and they start eating organic matter. So
Mm.
on your dog's skin, on your kitchen table, they're getting into the nooks and crannies, and they're eating those dead skin cells and those molecules of fecal matter or dust mite poop or whatever your dog rolled in and badger poo, whatever. And on the
Fox
kitchen
poo's
table,
the normal one.
well, fox poo for the kitchen table, badger poo for the dog skin. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Those molecules of nasty stuff, and they'll keep doing that for a couple of days, maybe 3 days.
Mm.
So now they're removing those organic bioallergens, taking away the food for the pathogens, and offering a whole. Now you go back to your microbiome. So now your microbiome looks different.
Yeah.
And when we're doing a presentation, I show a slide from a dentistry. We have a pre-COVID slide and a during COVID slide. And the
Mm.
big difference between pre-COVID and during COVID was the frequency of cleaning.
Mm.
Because at that stage, people still believe you could get COVID from a surface, which you
Yeah.
can't, right? You can find COVID on the surface, but you couldn't actually contract COVID from the surface.
Yeah.
So in this slide, you can see that represented in a bar graph, you've got quite a diverse microbiome, lots of different colors in this bar graph, as you can imagine. In the during COVID one, where you have the increased cleaning, you have a shorter bar graph. So there's less bacteria overall, but within
Mm,
that bar graph, you have, I measured it out at something like 2.5 to 3 times more streptococcus. So you
mm,
have 2.5 to 3 times more of one of the pathogens that's going to cause you a problem if you've got your jaw open and your tooth extract and now you're exposed to something going in there. This is one of the ones you don't want. So you have this counterintuitive situation where the more you clean with antibacterial chemicals, not only are you exposing yourself to chemicals, we'll come on to that in a bit, but you're actually finding yourself in a less hygienic. Some of these clever little bad bacteria, it can become resistant
mm,
to what you're cleaning, especially those what we call quats, and they will become resistant to the cleaning chemical.
mm,
So they're getting stronger, and you're killing off their competition. So you have
mm.
this thing where you're creating it. That's called antimicrobial resistance. And I know the word you were using was antibiotic resilience. But being
Yeah.
resistant to antibiotics, well, there's two things cause antimicrobial resistance, or you might see it written as AMR.
Okay.
One is the overuse or misuse, and sometimes maybe a clinician doesn't have any other option, but the overuse and misuse of antibiotics. People know
Yeah.
about that one. But cleaning
Mm,
products, it's the same thing. If you're using antibacterial cleaning products and the pathogens become a bit resistant to it, and it's the
yeah.
resistant pathogens that survive. So basically, the stronger versions of those pathogens, they're the ones that survive and replicate. And you imagine
Mm,
this over generation of pathogen, generation of generation. You're training and, if you like, breeding stronger bugs
yeah.
to the point where, in certain situations, this is an issue. You know, you read stories
Mm,
of C. difficile, which was only ever associated with hospitals, is now seen in the home. And
mm,
I read a paper from University College Hospital in London, and it was back in 2005. And this professor was saying, look, we can see a correlation between those parts of the hospital that are cleaned more and the rise of superbugs.
mm.
So what we should be washing our hands with is soap and yogurt. So this is before probiotic hand soap was thought about, if you like.
Yeah.
So it's the same premise. If you're going to wipe out the microbiome, quick, before something else replaces it, we take control. We have microbiome in the bottle, and that's what we put on the surfaces. Whether it's the washing of the hands, washing of the pet, teeth, ears, kitchen floor, it's the same. So we leave that microbiome intact in a healthy state.
Right.
So that's, I don't know if we've answered the question at all, Nathan. Have we? Does
Oh,
that work?
that's absolutely fine. The roundabout way we sort of got there and used some analogies, and so brilliant. So thank you so much. So we're going to move on to our next section now, which is the power of probiotics in pet care.
Mhm.
So how do the probiotics in pet care differ from traditional products on the market?
So again, the big thing is how the probiotics work. And what we've been talking there about is how probiotics work in a general way. And now what we're talking about is a bit more specific. How we
Yeah.
apply that same methodology, that same technology, and how we make it work in dental health, how we make it work on hotspots and
Yeah.
in ears. And we know the condition of the ear, temperature and moisture and so, is going to be different in the skin, is going to be different
Mm,
in the teeth. And even with the skin, we know that most people, when you say to them, do you think that the microbiome underneath your armpit is the same as the microbiome on your wrist, for example? They're going to go, no, it's kind of smells a bit different, right? So we
yeah.
have probiotics that are good for skin, and different ones that work better in the ear and so on. And that's a lot of research and development right there, getting the
Yeah.
right combination of probiotics. So when we put them on the teeth, most people are looking at teeth as an issue when the problem starts. When you're a
Right.
human, you start brushing your teeth before the problem starts, right? Okay.
Yes.
So
Yep.
humans don't tend to get as much plaque and tartar as pets. Um,
Yeah.
Dogs are a little bit easier in some ways because the dog's there basically panting in your face, and you've no option but to see his teeth. Cats can be a little bit more difficult because you got to go and take a look. They
Oh,
may
they
not
don't like
necessarily.
that.
I don't like that. Yeah. So my cat, I have to tell him. I have to sit down and because he's an Essex cat, I have to say to him, mate, this is good for you. You don't want 11 more teeth out like last time, do you? So, and he kind of looks at me with the dagger eyes, but yeah, they're spraying his mouth, and he kind of like, you know, he's fine. He doesn't like me
No.
doing it, but it's so yeah. We couple of sprays either side of the mouth twice a day. We start with, as a rule of thumb, twice a day. So what's happening there? Again, it's the same thing. It's replacing the microbiome with one that isn't great with
Mm,
one that is much better. Now,
mm,
plaque is coming from bad bacteria.
yeah.
You might say, well, what are we feeding our dog that the plaque can feed on? That's a whole other question. Okay. But even well fed dogs and good raw meaty bones and so on can
Mm,
get plaque. So the plaque is coming from bacteria. So rather than trying to remove the plaque, just do something that's going to take the plaque away. Hey, look, okay, well, let's just reset the clock, shall we? Because if it took a certain amount of time for that plaque to get to that stage, well, by the time the clock rolls around the same amount of time again, surely you're going to be in the same position. Was what the
mm,
probiotics do is they outcompete the bacteria that are causing the plaque in the first place. So we turn
I
the tap
see.
off. Okay. So that's how
Yeah.
the difference. So instead of, and we can use that application, and I'll talk about ears in a second because that's even more dramatic with ears. But with the plaque, I tend to liken the plaque as the light on the dashboard in your car. And we're not just
Okay.
fixing the light, we're actually lifting the bonnet, fixing what's causing the light.
Yeah, having a
Okay.
look.
And
Yeah.
stopping it
Diagnose,
happening.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, doing a diagnosis or something.
that's
Looking
right.
beneath the bonnet.
That's right. You got it. And so we ace the fire extinguisher at the base of the flame. We tackle the issue at source, stop it happening.
Mm,
So you turn that
mm,
tap off for the production of plaque. No plaque means you're going to not get tartar.
yeah.
You're going to be less likely to get gingivitis, but not unlikely. But of course, gingivitis is coming from bad bacteria. So guess what we're doing there? We're just outcompeting those bad bacteria. And the
Yeah.
gingivitis is really interesting because now you're into low level infection that's connected to the rest of the body through the tiny little blood capillaries into the main blood
Mm,
system, into the rest of the
mm,
body. Okay, that's
mm.
before you even get into periodontal disease and so on. Now, I'm not saying if you have a dog that's got raging periodontal disease and major problem, go to the vet. Don't be spraying
Yeah.
probiotics. Go to the vet. Do not pass go. Okay, just
Don't collect your 200 quid. Get to the vet. You're going to need it there.
yeah, won't do you. Won't go very far, but you're gonna yeah. So go to the vet, but with changing that microbiome in the mouth. Okay,
Mm,
so plaque and tartar are just the lights in the dashboard. Gingivitis is the big deal. So look out for that red line. So
yeah.
that's a really good example. In answering your question, how do probiotic-based products work compared to more traditional-based products? Like I say, instead of just cleaning off the plaque, we're stopping what causes the plaque in the first place.
Getting the,
Yes.
yeah. You're
Uh,
preempting it almost, aren't you?
you are, and look, no two cats the same, no two dogs the same, no two humans the same. You could be doing the same. You could have, you know, two dogs from the same litter and
Mm,
fed the same food, and one of them's more plaque than the other. And it's the same with using probiotics. So you might find you need to use a little bit more on one, but still, you got to keep an eye when you're spraying it
yeah.
on there. Keep it, and you only need to lift the lips. You don't need to make the dog go say stick your tongue out.
Oh,
Just lift the lips, get it in.
just
Yeah,
got to go on there.
get it inside the
So,
lips, and the saliva will move it around.
and then, right. So with ears, then you mentioned about
Mm.
talking about ears, but obviously a lot of dogs get all these yeasty ear infections, don't they? So that must be something similar, like, to,
Yeah, I mean, the ears differ from teeth in our experience in one big area. Teeth, it's a bacterial issue, right? That's it. And
right.
bearing in mind, like I say, most of our clients would be very aware of what they feed a dog and so on. And still, dental is one of our biggest selling products. So
Wow.
with the ears, you've got to look at it and say, Is it yeast? Is it bacterial? Is it both? Is one
Right.
causing the other? Is it inflammation? Is inflammation
Mm.
causing an infection? Or is an
Mm.
infection causing an inflammation? So
It's a vicious
getting to the root
circle.
cause, yeah, there's a few more things going on with these. So what with ears? So what we do, if someone says, "Can you have my dog's ear?" So okay, is it both ears or one ear? This is a very much a rule of thumb, Nathan, right? So don't take this one to the bank. If it's one
That's
ear,
fine.
chances are if it's one ear, it's going to be bacterial. Chances are if it's two ears, it could be bacterial, it could be yeast.
Mm.
And if it's yeast, so again, the microbiome has mites, viruses, yeast, naturally occurring, all in a balance, no problem. Loads of bacteria, all in a balance, everything's fine. Maybe throughout your whole life. But if something then knocks that microbiome out of whack, and you can get
Mm.
the naturally occurring yeast is kind of taken over. It's
Yeah.
not yeast. This yeast isn't coming from the moon. It's there already, and something's affecting the microbiome. And so we'd say, okay, let's have a look. What could be affecting the microbiome of your
Mm.
dog's ear? Food, possibly vaccines. We'll talk about the environmental issues sort of later, but there's things that are affecting your dog's microbiome. Remember, I talked about the spraying the antibacterial cleaners. Okay, bear in mind your dog doesn't shower every day and change clothes every day, and he's lying naked on the kitchen floor, you know, and sweating there and re-wetting the chemicals and so on. Anyway, more about that in a minute. So in the ear, number one, um, if it's yeast, sometimes the yeast needs to be removed first. Now, putting the probiotics in there is not going to hurt, but it may not help the yeast if the yeast is established. So
I
we kind of
see.
take a back seat there and say, look, when it comes to yeast, we would say that we are a very important second part of a two-stage protocol. Number one
Right.
is finding a way to get rid of the yeast. You may need to use something. Now, some people just change diet and it goes away and it rebalances. That's brilliant, wonderful. But if it's a situation where you're needing to remove it, then you're using something to remove the yeast. And there's products out there. The one that always comes to mind is Conor Brady's Lithium, something like that. It's natural. It's going to remove the yeast. Some people use other things to remove the yeast that are a bit harsher. But all of these
Yeah.
things are going to, they've got antibacterial properties. So you can have a
Yeah.
situation where you do a protocol in good faith to remove yeast, you leave the microbiome depleted in the ear. And remember what he said about what happens next. Then
Mm.
what can happen is that you get a different pathogen taking up residence and colonizing the ear microbiome and gaining
Yeah.
ascendancy and all of a sudden you got a problem. You think, hang on a minute, I saw the yeast, and now he's got it, and all of a sudden you've forgotten about the yeast. Now you got a bacterial issue, and maybe then you're wiping that out with some, and then a month or two later you got another issue, completely different bug, and you're going, hey, what the hell, oversteer, understeer, and we got a problem, and this is very expensive.
Yeah.
So with the probiotics, we're going to do in the ear with the ear based probiotics exactly what we've done on the skin, on the kitchen floor. Like we said, we're going to outcompete the bad bacteria. We're going to put a defending army in there. And what we notice from studies is that as the ear, let's say it's a bacterial infection, as the evidence of the bad bacteria decreases, so does the evidence of the good bacteria. Because
Yeah.
the job is being done. We're eating organic matter. We're
Mm.
outcompeting the bad bacteria. There's less organic matter, less of the good bacteria are going to come out of their spore form and start doing things. So they can fade away. So with ears, you'd start putting probiotics in a couple of times a day, and eventually you're getting to the point where maybe you're doing it a couple of times a week, maybe even you're stopping it altogether. Okay,
Mm.
and then the natural order of things are going to slowly come back into play in a nicely balanced way, rather than, and again, this is answering your question about how they differ, right? So rather than just wiping the whole microbiome out, keep
Yeah.
your fingers crossed and let's go. Now, when you wipe the microbiome out with an antibacterial, it does the job.
Yeah.
Job's done. It does what it says on the tin. You can't say it doesn't. But the question is, what happens next?
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of times where I've gone to somebody, I've met somebody either socially down here or through business, and they've said, "Oh, we know your product. We had a dog that was about to have its inner ear removed, so total ablation removed the inner ear
Oh,
because repeat ear infection, repeat ear infection.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. But we sent them to, and they've named a vet who knows about the probiotics. And not
Right.
only does the dog not have to have the surgery that's going to make it deaf in one ear for the rest of its life, but the repeat cycle
Gosh,
of ear infections is halted.
that's amazing.
It's very gratifying to get to have that
I bet.
fed back to you, And then when we went back to that particular vet, and he told us stories of where a dog would present with an ear infection, they'd use antibiotics, infection would go away. Brilliant. 2 weeks of antibiotics, great. 2 weeks after the antibiotics finished, dog would represent with an ear
Mm,
infection again. They'd swab,
mm,
send it off the lab, did you try and get better antibiotics and so on. And the dog would be okay. And then a month later, dog would present with an ear infection and they'd swab again. And this time they're finding that it's showing up, it's a different infection. It's not that
yeah,
the antibiotics didn't work, it's that the antibiotics worked really well, killed everything, and the ears
wow,
left open to recolonization. So that's how traditional products would work. Whereas the probiotics work in the other way I've just mentioned, which is literally just leaning their shoulder into the wheel of the way Mother Nature does it, and just
yeah,
put lots of good bacteria in there.
perfect. Thank you, Joe. So many pet parents are focusing on diet, but how important is it maintaining a pet's external microbiome for their overall health?
Look, I'm going to say it's really important. And
Yeah,
somebody's going to say, I used bleach all my life and it never caused my dog a problem.
yeah,
Great. My grandfather smoked till he was 90. Great. That's great. Does that make smoking a good idea? No, of course it doesn't. So there's studies out there already, you can find them, that show that dogs and cats are shown to have more chemicals in their little bodies than their owners.
yeah,
So not just higher proportions, but more. So they test
mhm,
their blood, they test the urine of the pet and the owner. This is what they find. And these are household chemicals. Now, there's some household chemicals are quite difficult to get rid of. The thing that stops your sofa bursting into flames, that chemical, bursting into flames is if you happen to drop a cigarette. Hopefully you don't smoke, but you know what I mean.
I was like,
Yeah, me neither. They're difficult to get rid of, but
mm,
you can very easily take that chemical-based antibacterial cleaning product out of your hands and put something else into your hands, and all of a sudden now you're going for that lower hanging fruit, and it's easy to change the microbiome. Now, if you can stop spraying antibacterials around that your dog is going to breathe in, and is there proof of this? Yes, look, there's proof when it comes to children, child obesity linked with household chemicals affecting
yeah,
the gut microbiome. And in some cases, it might only be a small element, but let's give the dog every chance. Let's remove the chemicals. Okay.
yeah,
Now you're going to less chemical exposure, less chemicals, toxins inside its blood and urine, right? In its body. It's going to be
mm,
breathing in less antibacterial stuff going into its gut. Okay. When it
yeah,
licks when it licks something off the floor, what's it licking off? Now we get people sometimes say, I use a pet friendly cleaner. And we say, okay, does it say keep the keep your pet out of the house for half an hour after you clean the floor? Or does it say let your pet in when the floor is dry? Yes. Okay. So what happens when your pet sweats through their paws and re-wets whatever this substance is, or licks the
yeah.
floor, or just goes out for a wee out the back on a wet day and comes back in? We get sent sometimes, not every day, thank God, but we get sent sometimes pictures of dog genitalia where what looks like a chemical burn, a very mild chemical burn. So
Oh gosh.
when you look at atopic dermatitis, and there isn't a study to make this connection, but when you look at atopic dermatitis, you're usually looking at the underarms, the belly.
Mm,
Okay, quite often with the bits of the dog, and I'm going to say dog rather than cat in this case, right? The bits of the dog that are in contact with the surfaces. Okay,
yeah,
so if you've got something that's wiping out that microbiome of the skin, then you're open to certain issues. And there's already studies from a university over in South Korea that was really interesting. Direct link between indoor pollution and canine atopic dermatitis,
mm,
where the pollution, indoor pollution, was affecting the skin at cellular level and
Mm,
causing irritation. So, how important is it that your dog is in a healthy microbiome? It's very important. You know, when you look at dogs out in the country, there's certain studies out there that would say dogs in the country have a slightly better time of it. You know,
yeah,
they have different microbiome. As long as the farmer hasn't been spraying something nasty, um,
yeah.
then they're exposed. They have just a healthier microbiome when they go out for a walk and stuff. So
Mm,
we say it's really important, um, for the gut in terms of a support thing. If your dog's got a really bad gut issue, switching your products to clean products to probiotics, or your shampoo to probiotics, isn't going to help them. It's a supporting thing. Okay.
okay.
But what it will help is skin. Also, think about ears. So ears are just an
Yeah.
extension of the skin. The microbiome is important. It's there whether you like it or not. Stop trying to kill it, because it's bigger than we are. Literally.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think with regards to the next question, you've spoken about the dog with the ear, but if you could share an example of a pet that has benefited significantly from switching to probiotic based care. So would that be the dog that managed to keep his?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those dogs, multiples. I mean, they're striking. And we talk about those. We don't say, we're very careful to try and under promise and over deliver. But those
Of course.
examples are out there. Skin is probably more of an obvious one, where we've got case studies where, just spraying the probiotics directly onto the skin has has really helped with a dermatitis kind of situation. This whole itchy dog, and I'm kind of doing air quotes here, because it's 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 crazy. The amount of dogs out there with itchy skin.
Yeah,
It might be food, it might be stress, it could be anxiety, it could be that they've got I don't know, a flea infestation. It could be lots of things, but
sure.
also it can be the chemicals in the house. So
Mhm.
give your dog's skin a break, and reduce their chemical exposure and reduce their exposure to things that are designed specifically to kill bacteria on skin, which is reliant upon a good bacterial balance. So
Mhm.
that's been great. With the teeth as well, we see a lot of good results on,
Good.
um, and that's a different area, because with teeth you got to look after them all the time. Don't wait till there's
Yes.
a problem. It's a bit like we brush so we don't get problems. We floss
Uh,
for the benefit of our heart, so we don't get gingivitis and so on. Um, we did have one very striking issue with a dog with a nasty, nasty, um, anti autoimmune disease, which meant that
right.
the gums were attacking itself basically, and any
Gosh.
bad bacteria at all meant that the the gums were just getting kind of all lesions and inflamed, nasty. And the only way of treating that is to take all the teeth out and then let the gums heal over. So,
Mm. Mhm.
and although the dog recently did have to have, after 10 months. So he was due to go in to have all the teeth out on the Tuesday, started using the probiotics. The Saturday was that 3 days before, and got a stay of execution. That was last February. A year later, he did have a really bad flare up and had to have a couple of teeth out. But otherwise, he still got all his teeth, and he's happy and he's not in pain, which is, and he's got his teeth. So, yeah, we do have some striking also for post operative wound care.
Okay.
Typically, we get the vets saying to the pet owners that the wound has healed twice as quickly as they would
Mm.
expect when they're using the skin-based probiotic spray.
That's amazing.
That's kind of nice.
Mm.
Number one, that you're not allowing, infections to get in there to cause their kind of problem. But number two, that the dog is happier quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Brilliant. So moving on to probiotics and common pet health issues, we've sort of touched on a few things, but many dogs obviously struggle with allergies and skin sensitivities. So how do probiotics sort of help soothe and prevent those issues?
Well, I think with skin, there's almost two questions going on. Why is any irritation getting through the protective skin barrier? We have the skin, biggest organ, keeps the rain out. Glad we have it. And how do some dogs get inflamed and itchy skin? Why isn't the skin? So that's a whole thing.
Yeah, sure.
Where we help is we say, look, again, the bad bacteria that are causing the problem, causing the irritation, and they might be a secondary thing. Something else has caused them to be able to get into the skin where they shouldn't be. And we all,
Mm,
like I say, we have staphylococcus, which is fine on our skin, but we don't want it. If we get a deep cut, we don't want any of that, too much of that stuff going in there.
yeah.
So you need to look at that. But what we do is we outcompete the bad bacteria causing the problems, and then in most cases, the skin is able then just to repair itself. Produce the sebum and just repair its hot spots and things like that. But so that's where we really really have. So we put that protective coating, if you like, onto the skin
Mm,
and keep the bad bacteria at bay, and also onto the bedding. The
yeah.
same product we're spraying onto the bedding to do exactly the same there, to have a protective army um, of good bacteria to outcompete the bad, and also to reduce those bioallergens back to the dead skin and the dust mite poop and so on. Okay, so
Yeah.
we get that's how we work really well with skin. At the same time, if you're using something harsh, antibacterial, or with a very different pH than the dog's skin, you're
Yeah.
exposing the skin to something that's going to cause it a problem. So
Mm,
again, we say, look, let's not do that. Let's take that bottle of whatever you're using and replace it with a probiotic cleaner. So that's a dual approach. What goes directly onto the pet and what goes into the pet environment.
yeah. Brilliant. So we know that antibiotic overuse is a growing concern. So how do probiotic products reduce the need for antibiotics in pet care?
So this is a really sensitive
Oh, okay.
subject, right? Not
Right.
not for us, because we're like,
We're,
we know the answer. We're fine. But
we're tread carefully.
we tread carefully. So we'll say to people, look, if you're listening to this, if you're at all worried, go to your vet, right?
Yeah.
Go to your vet, because there's times where we can really, really help, but we don't want anybody taking a risk. Go to the vet if you're at all worried. But the vets know through their own industry, not because of what we're saying, although Nathan, I'd love it if it was because of what we're saying, but it's not. But let's be real. But their own industry is saying you have to use less antibiotics, less immune suppressing drugs. That's a whole
Yeah.
area. Immune
Yeah.
suppressing drugs. Okay, let's step onto that landmine, shall we? If you can go back to that ear scenario where my vet is telling me that this is what he was finding, he was using the antibiotics that were wiping out the microbiome, and he's having this repeated issue, and at the same time exposing that dog to antibiotic after antibiotic. What you want to do is use the antibiotics when you really need them, because when you really need them, they're a godsend, aren't they? I mean,
Yeah.
God, where would we
Definitely.
be? How scary is it to think that we could become resistant to antibiotics? That's a scary world, you
That
know?
is very scary.
But the antimicrobial resistance predates the invention of antibiotics.
Yeah.
Remember, this comes from chemicals being used
Yeah.
as far back as the Victorian era. They can trace this. So, if we can treat at least a minor, and again, playing it safe and answering your question, let's just talk about minor issues where the animal then doesn't need an antibiotic.
Mm,
Let's treat the environment where the environment is much more healthy, because we're not creating stronger bugs, so that when the dog or the cat has a cut, they're exposed to less nasty stuff, let's say, right? So less chance of them getting rid. So again, let's aim the fire extinguisher at the base of the flame and try and reduce the amount of times that they get a bad infection. Let's see where we can use probiotics instead of antibiotics. Skin, ear issues, teeth, preventing those. Let's not get up to periodontal disease. Let's use probiotics way before we get to that point.
well, they
So
say prevention's better than the cure, don't they?
stitch in time saves nine. Absolutely. So if we can reduce the amount of times that antibiotics is needed, then there's less antibiotics going to get used. And remember, you're at the level here where investigators can go into the sewers of a city and they can talk about the antimicrobial resistance level of that city based on what they find in the sewers. This stuff
Mm.
is in the environment. The the level of other drugs that gets given to animals and humans that ends up in our waterways,
Yeah.
and antibiotics are part of that. Okay, so there was a report in the Irish Times. It was actually about 2 years ago, describing the rivers being, and the word they used was awash. The rivers are awash with antibiotics. Now you might say, well, my dog's not peeing directly into the toilet like I am, and it's my antibiotic. Sure, but you get what I mean. There's a build up, and Mother Nature is just going to climb over that wall and just make stronger bugs. It's no problem to Mother Nature. We're just a blip on the landscape as far as she's concerned. So that's how we help antimicrobial resistance, because we outcompete the bad bacteria instead of trying to kill them with something that they can become resistant to.
Yeah.
When we outcompete them, they cannot get resistant to starvation. We outcompete them.
Hmm.
We consume the food sources, and bugs can't get resistant to that. And
Good.
it's worth knowing that when a bug becomes resistant, when it develops that resistance ability, it can pass it to its mates. It's a bit like
Sure.
sharing a game on a memory stick. I'm not a gamer, but I can imagine. And then all your mates have it on their laptop, right? So
God.
once the bugs get this resistant genes, they want their mates to have it as well. So all of a sudden, resistance can happen really quickly. So yeah, just stop using antibacterial stuff. Use probiotics where you can. If you're
Yeah.
really, really worried, if you're worried at all, go to your vet. Your vet is
That's it.
likely to use an antibiotic unless you're a holistic vet, in which case they'll be more inclined to try and avoid using antibiotics for good reason.
Mhm. Brilliant. So we're going to move on to the link between microbiome health and behaviour. How can using probiotic cleaning products help create a calmer, less stressful home environment for pets?
Sure, and again, this is where we are in a supportive role. It's not going to
Yes.
be you take the maddest Tyrannosaurus Rex pup and spray some cleaner on it, and all of a sudden it's calm and tiptoeing. No, um, but think of blue Smarties. If you have a bunch of blue Smarties, some Coca Cola, not long before you go to bed, you yeah,
Fire in the
it's
walls.
yeah, it's just okay. You want to train me? Go ahead and try. I'm full of blue Smarties and Coca Cola. So if we can just reduce chemical exposure, and the microbiome is connected with all kinds of things in humans, depression,
Mm,
Alzheimer's, okay, and if it works in one mammal, it's going to be very similar in another mammal. So let's not mess up that delicate microbiome of the gut that's
sure.
connecting all these things. It's messed up enough with the kind of the the food we eat. And I'm over here in Ireland, I think we subsist on potatoes and cake. It's just been mad amount of cake. So
Um, death by cake.
death by cake. Okay. Yeah, thanks. There you go. Thanks. So I'm very lucky. Sorry about the interruption there. I'm very lucky to be
no,
home.
you,
And
no, you're all.
my dad has dementia, and he's the most sweetest,
Oh,
wonderful human that you could ever wish to meet. He's wonderful. So he's
oh,
just come into the room checking on me, and aren't I
oh,
lucky? Aren't I a lucky man? Huh? So
that's really lovely.
yeah. So
Um,
where were
that's
we? Did I answer the question? I have no idea. Yeah,
That's okay. So we'll go
yeah,
on to the next one in terms of behavior. So we know that healthy gut can influence behavior.
yeah.
How do your products contribute to this microbiome balance?
So the main thing we do is we don't mess it up. We're not
Sure.
an antibacterial. Remember, antibacterial products connected with very asthmas, COPDs, fertility issues in humans, child obesity I mentioned earlier. So we're none of that.
Cool.
Okay, so that's the number one thing. We're not
Yeah.
adding to the microbiome of the gut. We're simply not doing anything negative to it, and there's enough of that around. Okay, but also
Brilliant.
but also, and in answering the previous question as well, just not having those chemicals. Remember that the dog is absorbing dogs and cats, dogs especially, they're sweating through their paws and
That's
walking
right.
across the floor with whatever you've cleaned that with has been re-wetted and reabsorbed. And if they're licking their paws, then they're just ingesting it straight away. If when it
Mm.
dries, stuff evaporates, they're breathing that in. Cats, whatever you clean your house with will end up at some point inside your cat because they groom like nobody's business. So I'm doing this on my laptop, and if I leave my laptop open, there's a certain black cat at home, and she should know better. She's 10 years old, and she's been told often enough not to sit on my keyboard, right? A dirty cat backside on my keyboard. And how do you clean underneath the keys and everything? So I'm just
Oh,
spraying it with probiotics. There's no point in telling her otherwise. So I'll just let her. I'll just spray with some probiotics, and they'll get in there and they'll eat it,
yeah,
and they'll
do
do the
their
thing
magic.
because they release enzymes and the different probiotics. Each there's multiple probiotics in a product, and each probiotic can produce multiple different enzymes depending on what organic waste matter they meet. So if they meet
Sure.
something that's been adjacent to the bottom of my black cat, they'll reduce one kind of enzyme. If they meet some dried blood, they'll produce a whole different enzyme, and they'll keep
Yeah.
doing this repeatedly over about a 3-day life cycle. So that's how we work instead of using chemicals.
Perfect. So, some practical use and safety for our pet parents.
Mm.
Couple of quick points here to ask you. So, how often should pet parents use probiotic shampoos, ear sprays, and allergy relief sprays to see the best results?
Okay, so with shampooing, we say as you normally would, and some people say, I never shampoo my dog. We go, yeah, fine. That's a
And I
dog's
was
decision.
thinking before I asked this question that groomers could probably use these products, right? When the
Oh, yeah.
dogs go into the groomers.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was just thinking that when you were talking earlier.
Well, let's segue into groomers and come back to answer your question. So groomers are fantastic because they are seeing things in ears, in teeth, on skin, sometimes before the pet owner see them because they're right
Yeah.
in there. So we have a lot of pet groomers that we talk to. Also, the pet groomers, if they're using slightly harsher shampoos, might be fine for your dog for once or however many weeks. But
Yeah.
the groomers are doing this day in, day out. So the probiotic shampoos are better for their hands. And
Of
also
course.
for the sustainability. And some people switch off when we talk about sustainability. But when you're a business, that's important to be able to say to your
It is.
clients, look, what's going down the plug hole here in my groomers is continuing to work in the wastewater management system to consume organic matter. Not only
Mm.
is it not nasty chemicals, most of which will have the
Yeah.
words harmful to aquatic life with long lasting results on the
Yeah.
bottle.
Yeah.
Not only is it not that, but it's actually helping a little bit as well. So become not environmentally friendly, but environmentally positive. So that the environment
Yeah.
is slightly better for you using the product. Now, tiny amount, but still over the zero line. So that's really, but the main thing is for their hands as well as for the dog's benefit. Some groomers will use a certain kind of teeth cleaning protocol.
Mm.
And again, we say to them, look, that's great. You're just resetting the clock, follow up with probiotics. And we have people who are groomers who sell our products onto the client and say, here we go.
Wow.
We've wiped the slate clean. We sprayed this stuff. Here's the bottle. Cost you this. Off you go.
Get going with it. Yeah.
And in those cases, we say, and answering your question, because I do answer the question eventually, Nathan, twice a day. Shampoo whenever you need to, or whenever you normally would.
Yeah.
And if you never do, you
Yeah.
never do. It's okay. With something like starting with the teeth, the ears, the skin, start with, as a rule of thumb, twice a day,
Yeah.
and then you'll know when you can reduce down. So, for example, for a hot spot, go twice a day. What happens if
Yeah.
you do 4 times a day? Well, you're not going to cause any problems because there's no overdose issue because it's not a chemical, it's not a drug.
Yeah.
You might waste a bit of money, but that's it.
Yeah.
But when the hotspot is gone, you stop using the product. You put it in your shelf in
Yeah.
the emergency cabinet. Unlike the teeth, we'd say, look, just like your own teeth, keep that up. Keep it
Mm.
up. With some dogs, you might get down to once a day. Go from twice a day to once a day. With some dogs, you might get
Yeah.
to every other day.
Yeah.
If it's really, really good, you might push it to twice a week.
Yeah.
With the ears, again, twice a day, starting, and then if you think okay, things are improving, maybe give it another day or two before you reduce down. No harm.
Okay.
Um, and then once a day, and then if it needs maintenance, and hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, then you're into like just twice a week. Okay. And
Cool.
one of the things that gets me when we talk about ears, we see people in various forums that we get involved in saying, I use X product every time my girl has a flare up, every time my boy has a flare up, I use this. And we're thinking they shouldn't be in every time.
Hmm.
So again, you're into the wiping out the microbiome, and then things
Yeah.
go. So let's not wipe out the microbiome, and let's see what happens, huh? Let's just lend a shoulder to the Mother Nature.
Yeah. Cool. And how can pet parents integrate probiotic cleaning products into their daily home routine to benefit their pets?
Well, put the chemical based ones in the cupboard, and lock them up.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Throw away the key.
throw away the key because I don't know. And we had this problem. My 20-something-year-old daughter had joined the gym, and they give her a goodie bag, and she said,
Okay.
and she knows me quite well, and she picked this bottle of stuff, cleaning stuff that was in this goodie bag. And she's like, what are we going to do with this? And I was seeing red, and I'm reading the back. It's flammable, right? And I'm an air guy, so I don't want to burn stuff and cause pollution, right? It says don't discard to drain because you're going to kill the fishies, right? And the food the fishes eat. Okay, that's where that's leading because the toilet or your sink, that's the beginning of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
I have no way. I'm certainly not going to use it around my cats. This is mild poison. So you can imagine, we were here last night, and so I'm getting quite informal here, but we were watching videos from 1982 of my grandparents singing at
Oh,
a party, and I'm thinking, can I imagine going to their parents and saying, "Hey, back in 1920s, whatever. Hey, tell you what we're going to do. We got this great idea. Instead of using soap and water to clean the inside of the house, we're going to use harsh chemical, mild poison.
God.
Going to be great. We're going to make a fortune, right? Because somebody is. Because why else would you use mild poison inside your home,
Yeah.
right? So yes, let's not do that. Anyway, so the positive half of the answering the question is just use just go to ingenious-probiotics.com. There's my plug, and read
Perfect.
read the news articles about itchy dog skin and cleaner products, and go on, and we do them in concentrates. You can get them really cheap. You can buy the ready to use product, or you can buy a
Yeah.
concentrate, and the concentrate is like way cheaper than what you're going to buy in the cheapest supermarket.
Yeah. Perfect.
There you
Right, Joe, we've literally sailed through this hour on the Yappy Hour.
go.
So we're going to start bringing it to a close for these last 5 minutes
Aw.
or so. I know I could go on even longer with you. It's so interesting. It's
My
like
dad's
my
going to come in
mind.
again, so no, I'm joking.
No, that's okay. My mind's blown, literally. So you had your little plug, but we'll be coming back to that in a minute anyway. But just to sort of wrap up, Joe, if you could leave pet parents with one key message about the benefits of probiotics, what would it be?
I'd say this. Look, your dog, when you bring him into the vet is looking at him or her, thinking there's 20 trillion microorganisms in, on, and around that dog.
Mm,
Before you go wiping him out, ask yourself the question, what happens next? And what happens if I just improve the microbiome balance rather than wiping it out completely? Just ask yourself
yeah,
that question. That's the
yeah,
thought. And the same goes with every surface inside your home and car and anywhere else where you use or work, whatever, where you use a
yeah.
cleaning product.
Perfect. And what's one small switch that pet parents could make today to improve their pet's microbiome health?
Well, of course, I would say, everything we do. But if it could only just be one thing and you put a gun to my head, I'd say which you are going to, the dental care. The dental
Okay.
care. The amount of times we have conversations about dental, and you're looking at it and you can't say, oh, we should start at this last year. You wouldn't have this problem now. You can't say that because the horse is bolted. It's not helpful. And the last thing you want to do is make anybody feel guilty or anything like that, because the people we talk to and the people who listen to you, Nathan, they're invested. These are proper pet guardians.
That's
Okay,
it.
their pets are very lucky. So the last thing
Yeah.
you do, we've had people in tears, and but that's the thing I'd say. Start start today. Look after your pet's oral microbiome, and just like you look after your own.
Yeah. Perfect. Joe, thank you so much. How can our listeners learn more about your products and to get started with probiotic pet care? So, how can they find out more about you and Ingenious
Oh,
Probiotics?
second plug, right? Yeah, look, we work really hard to put lots of information out there. We think that's really important. And the website I mentioned, ingenious-probiotics.com, we will, in about a month or so, or let's say 3 months, because these things always take 3 times longer than you think. But we're working on a new one where we're putting even more information out there. So we're taking the questions verbatim that we've been asked by concerned pet guardians to do with teeth, skin, and ears, particularly those three areas, and
Yeah,
then cleaning as a fourth area as well. But those, they relate to skin, really, the way we talk about it. We're putting them out there for you to read. Somebody else just like you with a similar question just like you is asking this question just like you, and here's how we answered it.
brilliant.
You can also just contact us, send us in questions. We love them. We're getting more and more of them, so sometimes it takes us a little while, so be patient if you don't hear from us for a day or
Unders-
two.
Understandable.
But we love those. Every day's a learning day for us, you know.
Yeah,
So that's what we'd say. Just go there, read the news section, and the resource section has all the case studies and reviews and so on. You can just
yeah,
peruse and have a little look. There's also a growing number of natural type pet supply outlets out there who are very well versed in pet nutrition and our products, and places where if you know them, you can go in and you can ask. And it reminds me, Nathan, of when you used to go to the pharmacy.
yeah,
Sometimes for certain things, you might go to the pharmacy rather than the GP, right? So
yeah.
as a concerned pet guardian, or a grown adult, when you do one, when you do the other. So there's places out there, and they will be all listed on our website. They're not at the moment because the thing keeps crashing. It's a nightmare, but they're all listed, ready for the new website, and you'll be able to see, is this one
Brilliant.
in your area? Go and have a chat with them. So some wonderfully dedicated people in those shops. It's an amazing industry when you scratch the surface.
Yeah. And if people just want to get hold of like you or your company, is it just via the website? Yeah. Your email address on there.
Yeah, yeah. The inquiries
And
that's it, that lands with all of us pick that up, and then whoever's best placed to answer will answer. So you might get
brilliant.
an answer from the team, or you might get an answer um, directly from me, depending on what the question
Who
is,
you
and yeah. But keep them coming.
Brilliant.
We absolutely love it, and we look every time we sell a cleaning product, for example. It's like, well, that's 1 liter of harsh chemicals that isn't going out
Oh,
into the world. Every time
that's
we
it.
sell a near care, we're thinking, wow, that's a dog who's potentially not going to need antibiotics. It's so
Yeah.
gratifying. So
Brilliant.
questions, we love them.
Brilliant. Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot, but if there was one person within our canine industry that we should invite onto the Yappy Hour, who would that be?
Oh, one person. Oh, what a nasty question to throw at me, because I've got. Oh
Well,
man.
some people have given me a couple, but
Oh
if
no,
you've got
man.
one that comes to mind.
Oh, I do. I'm thinking like the half dozen, really half dozen, and there's some wonderful, wonderful people out there. Anna Webb, Connor Brady.
Wow.
Just
We've got Connor coming on. So here's a
no
little
way. Really?
review.
Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic!
I know he's a
What
bit
a
of a
dude.
friend of yours, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
a little reveal for our listeners. Dr. Connor Brady will be joining us
yeah.
very soon.
Clayton Payne, Caroline Griffith. I'm thinking of, man, the
Yeah, I'm speaking to Caroline at the moment on email. Yeah, so some
very good.
brilliant names there.
And just one to throw in that you won't know, but I did a presentation with my vet friend, who's a buddy of Connor as well. He's a friend with Connor and Vicky Adams. If you know Vicky, Dr. Vicky Adams works with Connor and part of the Animal Cancer Trust. If you don't know what the Animal Cancer Trust is, your listeners need to know. If ever anybody gets the unfortunate diagnosis of their pet having cancer, there is a charity there to help, give them information,
Wow,
help with explaining what the vet means by this report and so on. And Vicky Adams and the team, they do amazing work, and it's worth speaking
brilliant.
to Vicky just for that. And the other one would be Richard Doyle. Dr. Richard Doyle did a presentation with us for Carla Pearson's group should be another one that have on Carla, crikey. So yeah, the names are just going to keep coming, Nathan. So I'll
That's
be
fine. I'm
emailing it
going to
more.
go back and, yeah, I'll be going back and writing all these down. Joe, thank you so much for joining me this evening on the Yappy Hour, powered by Yappily. We could have gone on a lot longer, but I was so looking forward to this episode. So thank you so much for joining me this evening, and we will chat to you soon.
Total pleasure, Nathan. Thanks so much for having me. I loved it.
Thanks, Joe. What an eye-opening conversation with Joe from Ingenious Probiotics. Here are some key takeaways from today's episode. Number 1. Probiotics aren't just for digestion, they're vital for skin, ear and dental health too. Supporting a dog's external microbiome can help prevent skin allergies, infections and irritation. Number 2. Probiotic pet care reduces reliance on antibiotics. By balancing bacteria naturally, these products help strengthen immunity and prevent recurring infections. Number 3. A healthy microbiome can improve behaviour. When dogs feel physically comfortable, they're less likely to exhibit stress-related behaviours. Number 4. Probiotic cleaning products create a safer home environment. Reducing harmful bacteria and allergens make a happier and fulfilled pet. Joe, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and for helping us understand how probiotics are shaping the future of pet care. And to all our listeners, if you want to learn more, be sure to check out Ingenious Probiotics and see how their products can benefit your dog. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review, sharing it with a fellow dog parent, and subscribing so you never miss an episode of the Yappy Hour. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.